Hi, kindergartners. Today I want to talk to you about a new reading strategy. We've talked about lots of different ways to make ourselves become better readers this year. So, for example, at the beginning of the year, we talked about looking at the pictures in a story before we read to make some predictions about what's going to happen. We've talked about making sure when we read that the words make sense while we're reading. We've talked about the characters in the story and looking at them from the outside to see what the character might be about, and then looking at how they're feeling on the inside to help us understand the story a little better. So today I want to talk to you about the problem in a story. And the problem is really just what goes wrong in the story. So the problem is the part of the story where there is trouble. And when I'm reading or when I'm listening to a story, because you're going to listen to a story in a few minutes, I'm going to think to myself, what's going wrong in the story? So if I look at this picture here, I can see that this girl, I'm looking at my character, I can see that this girl is not very happy. And if I look over at this side, I can see that maybe one of the reasons that she's not very happy is because her boots are very muddy. So if I was reading a story about this girl and her muddy boots, I might discover that she's upset about her muddy boots because she might get in trouble for being muddy, or she just knows it's a big mess and a big pain to kind of have to clean up a mess like that. So that would be the problem in this story. So I want you to listen to this story. It's called Giraffes Can't Dance. And I want you to think to yourself, like any good reader would do, I want you to think to yourself while you're listening, what is the problem in this story?
Gerald was a tall giraffe whose neck was long and slim. But his knees were awfully crooked and his legs were rather thin. He was very good at standing still and munching shoots off trees. But when he tried to run around, he buckled at the knees. Now, every year in Africa, they hold the jungle dance, where every single animal turns up to skip and prance. And this year, when the day arrived, poor Gerald felt so sad. Because when it came to dancing, he was really very bad.
Pay attention. I think I might be discovering what the problem in the story is.
The warthogs started waltzing, and the rhinos rock and rolled. The lions danced a tango that was elegant and bold. The chimps all did a cha-cha with a very Latin feel. And 8 baboons then teamed up for a splendid Scottish reel. Gerald swallowed bravely as he walked toward the floor. But the lions saw him coming, and they soon began to roar. Hey, look at clumsy Gerald! The animals all sneered. Giraffes can't dance, you silly fool! Oh, Gerald, you're so weird. Gerald simply froze up. He was rooted to the spot. They're right, he thought. I'm useless. Oh, I feel like such a clot.
Have you been able to figure out what the problem in the story is yet? I'm going to keep on having you listen to the story and see how this story ends.
So he crept off from the dance floor and he started walking home. He'd never felt so sad before, so sad and so alone. Then he found a little clearing, and he looked up at the sky. The moon can be so beautiful, he whispered with a sigh. Excuse me, coughed a cricket, who'd seen Gerald earlier on. But sometimes, when you're different, you just need a different song. Listen to the swaying grass and listen to the trees. To me, the sweetest music is those branches in the breeze. So imagine that the lovely moon is playing just for you. Everything makes music if you really want it to. With that, the cricket smiled and picked up his violin. Then Gerald felt his body do the most amazing thing. His hooves had started shuffling, making circles on the ground. His neck was gently swaying, and his tail was swishing round. He threw his legs out sideways, and he swung them everywhere. Then he did a backward somersault and leapt up in the air. Gerald felt so wonderful, his mouth was open wide. I am dancing? Yes, I'm dancing. I am dancing, Gerald cried. Then, one by one, each animal who'd been there at the dance arrived while Gerald boogied on and watched him, quite entranced. They shouted, "It's a miracle! We must be in a dream! Gerald's the best dancer that we've ever seen! How did you learn to dance like that? Please, Gerald, tell us how!" But Gerald simply twirled around and finished with a bow. Then he raised his head and looked up at the moon and stars above. "We all can dance," he said, "when we find music that we love."
I hope you enjoyed that story. I think it was so cute. I really like how at the beginning of the story they set up the character. They really showed you that Gerald was kind of awkward. His knees were knobby and his legs were really long. So you kind of knew going into the problem that he might have a problem dancing at the party. So I hope that that helped you by knowing a little bit about the character. That also helped you try to figure out the problem. So this week, part of your homework is going to be to write what the problem was. So you'll see this sheet, and at the top it said what was the problem in the story. So I would write a sentence that might say Gerald, or I could say the giraffe was sad because he couldn't dance at the party. And that was the problem. The animals were kind of making fun of him because they didn't think he could dance either. And then at the bottom, you're going to draw a picture to show that, to show how sad Gerald was, or that his body wasn't really made for the type of dancing that the other animals were doing. So that will be your homework for this week. And I really hope that you enjoyed that story. I loved listening to it and finding it for you to enjoy. I hope that using the problem when you're reading this week, trying to figure out the problem, will also help you with your reading when you're reading your stories. So really think to yourself when you're reading your books this week, what is the problem? And what is the character feeling during the problem? I hope everybody's doing well. We'll see you soon.